one of the big question marks when the entire defensive staff got replaced. One of the question marks was, how is recruiting going to be impacted? And what we've seen is that recruits, actually, some of them really like the new coaching hires. One in particular, Jalen Williams, defensive lineman, said that's definitely big for Michigan. So very, very exciting about the Greg Scruggs hire. And he's a 4-star lineman, so that's the type of player we're going to need to continue to compete at a high level going into 25 and 26. I'd love to just kind of get your take on, I guess, first, just general what you're seeing from some of these recruits before we dive into kind of NIL and that. So have you been kind of seeing some positivity in terms of the new defensive staff, the new Sharon Moore on down? What's your take on that?
Yeah, so there has been positive feedback, right? The one unfortunate hurdle at the moment is because the defensive staff hasn't been officially announced, they can't recruit. So at the moment, Sam Popper is handling all of the defensive recruits right now in terms of just kind of letting them know that we want to get them on visits and things of that nature. So that's unfortunate, but there is still a lot of enthusiasm. I think you're right with Williams. The Greg Scruggs hire was huge because if you remember when Elston got fired, he put out a tweet saying you might want to change that crystal ball. And
Right.
But he loves Greg Scruggs. Like, he loved him at Wisconsin. So he was kind of leaning that way anyways. So the fact that we have him now reopens that door and puts us in a great position for a player like him. And then you got guys like Alex Graham, who I think you could see make a commitment sooner than later. I'm not putting any crystal balls out there or anything like that. I'm just simply saying he's very he's close to a decision, right? He's been close to a decision, but I think you could see something sooner than later on that, which is why the visits next month are going to be huge. If they can get these guys on campus and they can announce these hires hopefully this week, because it's been, 3 weeks, right? Welcome back. Yep, good to see you. It's been 3 weeks since these coaches have been announced, which I understand. I understand the delay because of past incidences, but I do think it's a bit of overkill in not announcing these coaches sooner, because we're at a disadvantage, John. I mean, if you think about it,
right,
we haven't even started recruiting to full capacity, and it's March. So we really got to kick into high gear. There is some optimism on that, though. I do have some interesting news we're going to talk about later, but I think in March we are going to see things really pick up, though.
Well, since you brought it up, let's chat. So we talked last week about some of the moves that Sharon Moore has been making on the NIL front that have been announced, right? And a lot of people liked that video, and a lot of people saw it, and so clearly some optimism from the community about what Sharon Moore's been doing. Would love to just hear kind of your take on any updates you might have heard about.
Yeah, so I've received some interesting information on that.
Yeah.
So I've gotten information from some people close to the collectives, and there is a lot of encouragement and a lot of excitement in that circle from the approach that Sharon has brought to the collectives. Is a complete 180 from Harbaugh. And it's not that Harbaugh wasn't interested in bringing collectives into this, because he was, if you remember last summer, promoting Empower and trying to get a team-based salary along with some other.
I remember we covered it.
Right. So he was definitely trying to do that. But from what I'm hearing, Sharon's a bit more hands-on, where Harbaugh was kind of hoping things would, I don't want to say fall in his lap, but he would make a few appearances and things would come a little easier. But, Sharon's rolling his sleeves up. He's putting the work in. He's making the connections. And not only that, the structure change that we're seeing within the collectives is actually coming from Sharon. It's not coming from a Sean McGee, right? Not that Sean McGee isn't going to have input or anything like that, but someone like Sean McGee is because of a Sharon Moore. Sharon Moore is identifying these people like, look, this is who we need so we can get the ball rolling. And from a donor perspective, from what I'm hearing, is there's a lot more positivity than there was in the past year or two. Now that doesn't mean right. So we got to tap into that donor base, right? And from my understanding is, and we just saw it recently, right? We just saw the anonymous donor donate a few $1 million just recently.
Yeah.
And I'm
Heard about that.
hearing that won't be the last. Now, I'm not saying we're going to get multiple $1 million donors, but what I am saying is the bigger donors are more encouraged now to help give resources to the collective. So it seems to be a far better situation. I've also heard that we should see in March, like we kind of touched on, some results. Some actual. It's one thing to talk about it, but it's one thing to actually see the results. Transpire in terms of commitments. But I'm not saying we're going to land top 100 guys because I don't know. I'm only hearing what I'm hearing, but I am saying we should see momentum really pick up next month.
Well, and we talked about this with Mark Rogers on the Voice of College Football when it was announced that the NCAA ruling that obviously the NCAA can't essentially enforce NIL issues because it violates antitrust laws to do that. So I think you're gonna probably start seeing not just Michigan, but a lot of schools just start opening the money cannons. I think of Notre Dame as another that I feel like is similar to Michigan in that they've kind of been reserved on their NIL approach and their general recruiting approach.
Well,
that may start to open the money cannons up.
The thing about Notre Dame, though, that I don't know if a lot of people know this, they actually do a team-based salary, and they actually do give money to their players. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
And one of the people who I don't want to say exposed, but one of the people who discussed that publicly is Zach Zenner's little brother is on Notre Dame. So I believe it was Zach Zenner. If it wasn't Zach Zenner, it was Trevor Keegan. I'm trying to remember. It was one of the two big guards, right? One of their little brothers is on Notre Dame, and he talked about the difference between Michigan and Notre Dame and what they do differently. And the players on Notre Dame are receiving some financial benefit, unlike not that Michigan's not getting financial benefit, but they're not getting a team-based salary. Not every player is receiving, so there is a difference. But I haven't gotten word yet on how Michigan is going to respond to that ruling with the Tennessee and Virginia injunction that was just put in place. I'm curious to see if we do evolve our approach a little bit more than we're already evolving, which it's already encouraging the route, the path we're walking down.
Preston Zinner who now he's a linebacker for him. So
yeah, the little bit.
So he must have been the one.
Yep, that's him.
Yeah, so, I mean, and by the way, that's Cade McNamara said the same thing publicly on the Jordan Palmer podcast, and people always cringe when I bring that up. But if you take the maize and blue hat off and you just listen to the perspective, like Iowa, Nebraska, they're starting to offer like minimum amounts, right. for players. So it's something that Michigan's really was behind the curve on in a lot of ways.
Well, yeah, and then let's look at the reality. The Big Ten's expanding, and we're about to add USC and Oregon. I mean, those are power players, okay? And then USC's not shy either, okay? They're just not good. But the reality is the Big Ten is changing. The climate's changing, and you're going to have a lot more schools getting a lot more confident. I'll give you a school right now you want to worry about, and that's Nebraska. Yeah. Nebraska wakes up. Like, you know how PJ Fleck was like, oh, Minnesota's a sleeping giant. No. Yeah. Nebraska's a sleeping giant. If their donors get motivated and encouraged, which they are because they're sick of losing, that's something Michigan needs to be aware of.
I mean, we talked about it on the Ocho last night that Nebraska, we did a full coaches ranking 1 to 18, and we put Matt Rule pretty high up there. Not just because of his results so far, but because of his ability to recruit a quarterback away from, two-time national champion Georgia into Nebraska. I mean, I understand there were family connections. Like there were other factors involved in that one, but still, we also know about when there's family factors and it doesn't work out because the other school, still is able to to snag them.
Yeah, I'm sure the financial persuasion was a little too much, an offer he couldn't refuse, right? So there's no doubt Nebraska ponied up some money to get him from Georgia. That wasn't happening otherwise, because Nebraska's been trying all year. They swung that last minute. So, but good on them. I'm not mad.
Also, I don't think, if the news continues to be like this and things continue to develop with Michigan, I'm not going to completely, and this is completely wild ass guessing here, but I could see, like, if Bryce Underwood, after his year, he does a year at LSU, he takes the millions, right, from LSU. But what if he sits? What if he's on the bench, or what if he's, kind of like a Dante Moore situation, right, where he was just unhappy with how he was doing and he decided to transfer. If Michigan's more open to utilizing NIL and the transfer portal and things like that, then I don't think he's completely out of reach.
Yeah, so I'm kind of hoping that on a year earlier. I'm kind of hoping this year Michigan gives them an offer that is, I would say, aggressive. I don't want to say competitive, because what I'm hearing about the LSU offer, it's actually not as it's not as high as people think it is. It's just a lot of the extras that come with it, like housing
Right.
for, housing and opportunity for his parents and stuff like that. But if Michigan can get it together this year and potentially offer something before signing day, we'll see. That's what I'm hoping for.
I do want to cover this comment from, friend of the program, Moose, who, he follows recruiting like few others. And I get some of my insight from recruiting because he's just always diving into it at a really high level. And, he mentions here, do we even want a guy like Underwood? And he seems to be all about the money and not about the team. And my comeback is, because in his defense, right, imagine that you have two schools. And I even ask all the, I'll use this analogy even with, Michigan fans. Like, imagine that you're 18 years old or 17 years old. I don't know his socioeconomic situation. I'm not going to make a judgment on that. But even if it's great, right? And you have two choices. You have, X number of millions plus incentives at one school that's a very well-known brand, LSU. And then you have the other school, also well-known brand, but it's more like if you're great, you do well on the field, then eventually you're going to get NIL. It's a very different pitch, right? And I just ask, if you're 18, you're 17, you have that decision. I would take the money. I don't know about you. I would take the money.
Yeah. Plus, it's the market now. Every top 300 player and some in the top 500, they're all receiving some financial. I mean, I'd say majority, and when I mean majority, I mean a high majority are receiving some financial benefit. And we got to get to the realization, this is paid for work, boys. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't pay for play. Like, this is a job. And I know they're getting scholarships. Okay, so I'm not trying to knock that or anything, but these football players, it's like any any profession, right? You got to be competitive. And to be competitive, you have to offer the best financial packages to get the best talent. So I've worked in consulting, and I'm going to tell you, it's highly competitive. And the way you retain talent is by offering the best benefits and, things of that nature. And the same thing goes for these programs. I mean, we're in an arms race. All these Big Ten schools from facilities. I mean, look at Schembecker Hall, right? They're about to get all new locker rooms and things of that nature. Like, from the facilities, from the talent retention, like it's a money game now, and you have to be able to compete.
Yeah.
To circle back, players like Underwood, it's not that his character is wrong. Okay. It's not that he has flawed character or anything of that nature. It's simply that he's just, it's what the market is demanding, from a player of his, caliber. I mean, we're talking about a 5-star. This is also kind of a generational quarterback. He would have been the number one quarterback last cycle too. That's how good he is.
Yeah. He's excellent.
Yeah.
Do I like Smith? Yes. Would I rather have Underwood? Yes. I mean,
not close.
It's just being honest.
Yeah.
This is but I do think he could light Smith, Carter Smith. He could light it up.
Underwood is on the level of a Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
Just for comparison.
Absolutely.
Like, you know,
No,
so
I agree with you 100%. Yeah, I'm gonna skip through some of these comments. I don't want to get demonetized here. But yeah. I mean, I hope it gets to a point because there's no putting the genie back in this bottle. There's no going back to full
right.
amateur. It's just not going to happen. So it's either going to continue status quo or it's eventually going to become a semi-pro situation where, and I think this is the way we should do it, where the salaries, the offers, everything is out in the open, out in public. And I think you're right, TJ, what you said earlier. Some of the offers may not be as high as we're hearing
Right.
out in the media, because maybe some agents are hyping things up a little bit.
Of course.
um
Plus the
so
benefits. It's the secondary benefits, like the job opportunities for parents or housing and things of that nature that you don't hear about.
Yeah. And that's been going on for a while,
Yeah.
hasn't it? Like in some schools, like job offers and housing.
Or getting a
That's been
girlfriend
a
or
thing.
getting a girlfriend into a school or a program. Like that just
Yeah.
happened at Alabama. One of the kids wanted his girlfriend to get into like the law school or something. Like, and Nick Saban's like, "What are we doing? What are we doing?" Crazy.
He's like, I'm out. I'm going to go on college game day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can't really blame him. No, that was a fascinating interview, by the way. That they, and I rarely give ESPN props, but that was a good interview. I thought the one with Reese Davis and Saban.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just to get his mindset, because you so rarely get into his mindset, because he's when he's in his media persona and he's on the doing his press conferences, you don't really get a sense for the guy. And I feel like stuff like that, you actually get a sense for like what makes him tick more and things like that.
Yeah, I'm excited for the addition on game day. I think hopefully Lee Corso retires respectively. And I'm excited for Saban to take the mantle there.
Yeah, I say let Corso do the headgear as long as he wants. But that's probably it. Maybe let him film it from Florida. He has the house in Florida, which he did during COVID times. He was there a lot. Just let him film it from there. I mean, what's the harm in that?
I'm just getting Lou Holtz vibes though. They're hanging on a little too long. They're hanging on a little too long. I felt like 3 years ago it was time. So we'll see.
Yeah. So before we move on to the combine, because we got some exciting discussion on that, but when you're doing your shopping on Amazon, as many of us do from time to time, some of us don't. That's fine. But if you do, there's a link in literally every video that Voice of College Football puts out, where if you click that, it actually supports our network and helps us bring on great content, great guests, and everything else in the future. So we're running like 20 different channels here. And Michigan's one of the best, in terms of subscribers. So we want to keep that going. Hit the Amazon link, subscribe to Michigan Football, the voice of college football. We want to beat Ohio State, people. Ohio State's like 1,300 ahead of us. How you can't let Ohio State beat Michigan. Okay, they haven't beat Michigan on the football field in 5 years, so you can't let them beat Michigan in the subscriber count. So subscribe to Michigan Football and tell everyone else to do it too.